The reality is that when you're constructing an ecosystem, what tends to happen is that you have to really architect around deep insights, number one, and second of all, how that unique audience is journeying into that category. And if you don't understand who you're talking to and you don't have a really good understanding of who they are, what's happening in their world, what their attitudes are, well, you can't build an ecosystem. You're going to end up with something fairly generic. Whereas when you understand the audience, when you've really clearly identified who's going to be the most valuable group to meet that business objective, then you can start constructing a journey that's relevant, A, to the category, and B, to the business objectives. And then you can really get those great nuggets of information that produce great ecosystems. Really, the way I think of a journey is it's the skeleton. It's the skeleton that you construct from which you architect around and create the ecosystem. So what you do is that you build the skeleton and then you figure out where does the heart lie, where does the liver lie, where does the brain lie, and you start building that construct which ultimately makes sure that around that journey you've understood exactly the role for the communications, number one, and then the optimal media, not only in terms of consumption but in terms of behavior around those roles for communication. And that's how you end up with an ecosystem that has a very clearly defined role for each communication activity, and then understanding how that communication activity leads to the next step in the journey. So from an ecosystem planning perspective, the most important thing is to understand how each media, A, plays its role, and B, interacts with the other media. If you don't have a journey, you don't know what that consumer is going to do next. So you really have to understand that full journey, build your skeleton, and then start building the organs around it to create this fully fledged human being or ecosystem. First, I suppose, because it has so many touch points and it has great lifestyle and attitudinal information, it allows us to really define the most important segment. After that, where it becomes really important is that you use CCS to understand what their touch points are, how they journey through a category, how much time they spend researching, how much time they spend in store, but then also to understand which media they use around that journey. And CCS gives us the broadest range of touch point. Essentially, that's where we hold our consumer information. And because we do it on a regular basis, we're always getting that updated, and it allows us to start seeing a little bit ahead of the curve, unlike metrics that are measuring things that have already happened.